This video is sponsored by Surfshark. Okay, so I've been sitting on this script for probably 10 months now, but with the release of The Legend of Korra on Netflix, I finally have the opportunity to record clips so I can make the actual video. And what a video this will be. One of the best parts about being a full-time script and novel editor is being able to understand and appreciate all the writing aspects that contribute to making great fictions so great. But as I have discovered, there's a horrible flip side to that, and it's that I can plainly see how much better so many stories could be. Looking at things with an editor's eye is not something you can just flip on or off. Every book, movie, video game, or TV show that I watch is constantly being analyzed in my mind for what I see as strengths or weaknesses. And unfortunately, more times than not, fictions leave me thinking that their potentials were not fully realized. And of course, that leads us to the last season of The Legend of Korra, and how, in my useless professional opinion, it squandered its truly massive potential. And if you ask me, which none of you did, but I'm going to tell you anyway, Korra should have died, and Korra should have taken over the world. And no, I'm not saying this because I love Korra and hate Korra. Personally, I think Korra is a poor man's Azula, and Korra is actually a decently well-realized protagonist. Still though, Korra should have been worm food by the end of season 4. But before I start boiling my blood and gnashing my teeth in my explanation, let me get some stuff out of the way first. The Legend of Korra is, all things considered, a good show. It has great characters, great set pieces, great use of lore, and possibly its best quality, great art design and animation. The Legend of Korra was a wild ride, and it took me to places that I honestly did not expect from the Avatar series. Amon is fantastic, though I will say I am a little bit biased on that front. His voice actor Steve Blum is such a favorite of mine that I would pay a monthly subscription to hear him read a Sears catalog.
It is almost a shame to take the bending of someone so talented. Almost.
Korra was intimidating, Zahir was just a straight boss, and Unalaq was... Anyway, The Legend of Korra, overall, in the grand scheme of things, was a good animated show, especially compared to some of the, entertainment that Nick has flaunted out. But my ever-present anger with Korra does not come from comparing it to Nick's stable of inbred misfits. It comes from comparing The Legend of Korra to the original Avatar series. Now, don't get me wrong, I knew from the get-go that whatever sequel Nick chose to make to follow up The Last Airbender wasn't gonna be on the same level. Expecting something like that would just be unfair, because Avatar The Last Airbender is widely considered to be one of the best animated shows of all time. When I heard of The Legend of Korra, I expected a respectable, entertaining cartoon that paid homage to the original while creating its own unique narrative. What I was not expecting was for The Legend of Korra to be so tonally erratic. The first season was this strange mixture of 3 shows that seemed to be more forced to coexist rather than naturally doing so. I mean, pro bending is super cool, airbending is literally the most visually stunning bending art in the show, come at me, and again, Steve Blum.
Those men were supposedly the best in the bending world, and yet it only took a few moments for me to cleanse them of their impurity.
Each is fine on its own, but I felt like I was watching the equivalent of a kung fu movie where the main character just falls into the WWE while needing to take down Al-Qaeda in the 20s. Season 2, on the other hand, is basically just the Avatar version of midichlorians stretched out over 14 episodes. Season 3 is honestly my favorite, and it's literally only because of the additions of such cool antagonists. And I don't even mean like their backstories and motivations and philosophies were cool, I mean the Red Lotus were just plain awesome to watch destroy stuff. Pai Li is basically if you slapped Brienne of Tarth into Wanted, but the bullets were made of the sun. Zahir uses airbending like Ted Bundy would, and Ming Hua doesn't have freaking arms, how can you not like that? But in truth, Season 3 is also where the seeds of my disappointment were planted, mainly because I was so excited to see how the show was transitioning into something I didn't ever think I was going to get from Nick. Moment by moment, the show was darker and more mature than ever before. If my memory serves, this was the first season of Korra to be banished to the netherrealms of Nick's labyrinthine hellhole of a website. And I have no proof of what I'm about to say next, but I would wager that the show got pulled from TV and put exclusively online for being so dark. Tenzin gets beaten and basically tortured on screen. The Earth Empress was forced to audition on set for Gravity. Korra is bound and force-fed mercury so that the antagonist could kill her. And oh yeah, Piley's face explodes. And even though the season ended, how should I say, not as dark as it could have, Korra still walks away with literal PTSD and chronic depression so all-consuming that it carried over into the next season. And if Season 3 planted a seed of disappointment, Season 4 was a mighty oak that fell upon me to crush my spirits. A new antagonist was on the rise, and from a nation we hadn't seen occupy that role in quite a long time. She was smart, dedicated, ruthless, and commanded respect from those around her. On the flip side, Korra was a mess. She is mired in self-pity, needs actual physical therapy just to walk, and is haunted by the visions of her traumatic experiences on the daily. And from an editing and storytelling perspective, I can get behind the narrative premise of Season 4. It's the tried and true practice of showing the protagonist in their lowest moment, up against the greatest challenge they have faced yet, but coming through in the end anyway. And that right there is what grinds my gears so much about The Legend of Korra's ending. The show had a real opportunity to make an impactful, profound statement about the nature of depression and overcoming it. Instead of beating back her mental demons and defeating Kuvira, Korra should have conquered her depression and still died. If the showrunners wanted to center their season on such a harrowing, realistic depiction of depression, that would have been the way to do it. Because overcoming depression isn't about beating a single hardship and then walking into a pillar of light to enjoy everlasting happiness. I wish it was, but it's not. Beating depression is about waking up every day face to face with a horrible, life-altering roadblock and the pain that comes with it, knowing that just doing the bare minimum is going to be excruciatingly difficult and giving up would be so much easier, but still fighting on anyway. Kuvira should have won because sometimes depression gets the better of you even when you put up your best efforts against it. But that doesn't mean you stop trying. That mindset could have been internalized throughout the entire rest of Korra's team after her death. They could have thought Korra might have lost and Kuvira might have won, but Korra never gave up, and neither can we. The season began with Korra searching for the tools to battle against her emotional and mental instability. It could have ended with the rest of the gang taking on the lessons that she learned to conquer her instability and use them in her honor, especially for a season literally titled Balance. But if you think I'm done, no, I'm just getting started, because Korra's death is the gateway to the potential that I think was locked away in Lost. Not only should Korra have died, there should have been another season showing the aftermath of how Kuvira used the Avatar to take over the world. Yeah, you heard me. Once Korra died, the new Avatar would have been born into the Earth Empire. What my twisted little editor's brain thinks should have happened is that Kuvira finds this new Avatar as a child, whoever he or she might be, and then raises them up in her image, eventually using their literal godlike abilities to complete her conquest of the world. And honestly, if you think about it, this just fits too well with the premises that Season 4 set down. Kuvira as a character is all about two things. Number one, the supremacy of Earthbenders and the Earth Empire. And number two, superweapons that make things not breathe anymore. She employs mecha suits for her soldiers, spirit plasma cannons, and an actual Gundam. Kuvira's entire approach to antagonism is taking natural and spiritual powers and turning them into assets for her own advantage. And what, might I ask, is the Avatar? Just the epitome of the natural and the spiritual combined into one form. What better crescendo would there be for Kuvira's character than to literally kill the Avatar, then manipulate her reincarnation from a young age and turn the Earth Avatar into a god weapon to take over the planet? It almost writes itself. This hypothetical next season could take place 20 or so years after Season 4, following Bolin and Mako and Asami and everyone, including maybe their children, in an effort to defeat Kuvira. They could resist Korra for years and years, battling against her, chipping away at her power over them. You know, like how you fight depression. The gang defeating Korra after so much time and so much loss would have much better served the show's thematic message. And what's more, the season could have flipped the entire series on its head and had the Avatar be the antagonist. It could have shown this new Avatar in conflict with himself, since the Avatar is meant to balance the nations. Perhaps instead of training this Avatar in the 4 elements, Korra could have made them Earth-centric, substituting firebending for lava bending, waterbending for sandbending, but leaving airbending untaught since it's so antithetical to earthbending. It could have been really cool to see the Avatar switch sides to right the wrongs of Korra, or maybe usurp Korra and rule the world as a malicious god emperor, or a million other possibilities. I'm not trying to write a fanfic here, but you get my drift. And for those of you thinking that this possibility is just too dark or complex, there is actually a plethora of justification for all these events to come about. Want to see the Earth Avatar go through a conflict of identity and character? Take inspiration from Zuko, who literally did that same thing. Concerned about the time skip? Already happened between the series. Worried that an evil Avatar would go against the nature of the show? We had a literal evil Avatar and an actual evil airbender in the seasons before this. But maybe the whole Korra kills Korra and rules the world plotline is too dark for you. If that's the case, might I remind you about the time that Iroh's son died in a war, causing the Fire Lord to order Zuko's execution so that Ozai might feel the same pain of losing a child, then prompting Ursa to murder the Fire Lord, her father-in-law, so that Ozai could usurp the throne from his grieving brother. That's straight out of Game of Thrones right there, and way darker than anything I've proposed. A season like I described would really have been the culmination of the themes of Avatar. And just for maximum clarity, no, I didn't expect this all to happen, but I'm still mad that it didn't. The setup was there, the characters were in place, and my dark little twisted heart hoped that the show would really capitalize on the opportunity it had created for itself, and leave its mark as another generational animation. Yes, there were other problems in the show, but killing Korra and having another season that focused on remaining hopeful in the face of consistent pain would have been a much more cogent ending than what we got. Like I said though, I just needed to get this off my chest, and since Korra has been added to Netflix, now seemed like the perfect time. Another show on Netflix that I have been absolutely crazy over is Better Call Saul, and I would have never been able to watch it had it not been for Surfshark. Surfshark is a VPN service that allows you to bypass the region-coded restrictions that Netflix and a lot of other streaming services have. Better Call Saul Season 5 is not available to watch in the US, but with Surfshark, Netflix thinks I'm in Germany, which allowed me to binge the entire season in like 2 days. I'm sure many of you out there have been disappointed by shows being denied in your country, but with Surfshark, that shouldn't be a problem for you anymore. And if that wasn't enough, not only is there a 30-day money-back guarantee, Surfshark has coupled with this channel so that anyone who uses my personal code gets an 85% discount on the service plus 3 months free. Trust me, with all the shows out there just waiting to be watched, this is as good an opportunity as ever. So click the link below and check out Surfshark for yourself. Anyway, thank you guys for watching all the way to the end. As always, it was a pleasure, and I will talk to you all again soon.